Καλημέρα σας. Good morning, dear friends. I will say a few words about Garcia Lorca and Greek tragedy. Garcia Lorca is maybe the most famous poet and dramatist in Spain. Together with Cervantes and Don Quixote, his work has been translated into most languages of Europe. I will drop aside his poetic world and will focus on his theatrical dramas. His dramatic production is full of variety. I only will examine the so-called tragedies. The playwright himself tried to call poetic dramas, even poetic tragedies, at least 3 plays. Bodas de Sangre, Blood Wedding, ματωμένο γάμος, στα ελληνικά. Yerma, means barren, sterile, and το σπίτι της Bernarda Alba, La Casa de Bernarda Alba, the house of Bernarda Alba. All the 3 plays considered as a kind of tragic trilogy. Being the last one, House of Bernarda Alba, under discussion by several scholars, and because of the lack of time, I'm afraid I mostly will examine Blood Wedding and Yerma, barren, sterile. If anyone makes a research on Spanish theatre, he will be really smashed when facing this couple of plays by Lorca. Indeed, he will not find any plays similar to those ones, nor before Lorca, nor after Lorca. That means they are absolutely unique in Spanish theatre. In the late Renaissance period, Calderón de la Barca, a very high-educated priest, wrote a lot of dramas inspired in Bible legends and Greek myths, but even if the subjects were directly taken from original Greek text, the plays were not tragedies at all. Not from the external point of view, not even from the internal one, those plays can be considered at all as tragedies. When anyone wants to describe in detail what a Greek tragedy really is, he will be very, very embarrassed. As a matter of fact, much more than one word will be required. Notice that Aristotle himself had to use at least 4 or 5 lines and more than 60 words to settle a proper definition of tragedy. I will try to explain why both Blood Wedding and barren, sterile, can be really labeled or not as tragedies, and to discuss if Lorca was influenced by the canonical tragic playwrights or not. Both plays are very different concerning the plot, but quite similar concerning the struggle suffered by their main characters. Blood Wedding presents a quite traditional plot. A young lady no name by the way, and always identified as la novia, that means the bride, is compulsory forced to get married to a man she doesn't like, she doesn't love. In fact, she's in love with another man. This one has his own name, Leonardo. The very day of the wedding she escapes with him, so the bridegroom will react, will fight Leonardo, and they both will die in presence of the bride. Baron, Sterling, Yerma is the story of a young girl just married, apparently unable to give birth. Little by little, we will discover that in fact her husband, Juan, either doesn't want to become a father, either he really cannot produce a baby himself. That means he's a sterile barren one. Whatever the reason will be, there is an unhappy marriage. In a very special way, Yerma is continuously blaming Juan, telling him and even telling the next door neighbors that she's absolutely unhappy because of the lack of children and because of the absolute rejection from her husband. After listening to the final arguments of this strange Juan, who says, "It's better to live without children, I feel happy without children, Yerma, you and me, we are not guilty for not having children," Yerma kills him. So, both plots have to do with women, marriage, sex, and love. And the character of Yerma reminds, in a certain way, of Euripides' Hermione in Andromache. Blood wedding has not an exact correspondence in Greek tragedy. It has indeed in Greek mythology, but not in Greek tragedy. Both tragedies take place in a similar rural environment, Andalusia, and even inside it into the most marginal, depressed areas, surroundings of Granada, connected with gypsies community. This one uses to be considered the most conservative, mostly concerning women and marriage. Lorca himself was born in the area and knew very, very well how this gypsy mentality works. In fact, gypsies inspired the playwright not only for drama, but mostly for poetry, romancero, gitano, to be read by the way. So anyone could wonder if both plays should really be considered as tragedy. The answer maybe should be yes, maybe no. Lorca himself declares in the prologues of both plays that he intends a real tragedy for each play. He declares that folklore elements, poetic text, and choral songs would accompany and would deliberately be added to the dramatic plot. His aim was indeed to put poetry into drama and to give both plays in a certain way the shape and the elements of a canonical tragedy. There we have the difference between Lorca and some other Spanish playwrights who developed dramatic, strong dramatic plots, but not in a tragic way, not in a tragic shape. Even if Lorca himself was not able to read ancient Greek, he was informed in translation of Greek tragedies and was maybe clever enough to discover several definable specific features. So, when watching Blood Wedding and Yerma and comparing them with any Greek tragedy, an important number of scholars have pointed out at least 10 affinities. First, an inner struggle, there's a conflict inside the heart and soul of a woman. This is no doubt the essential element in a tragedy. Second, the presence of a man. There is a man beside this woman whose personality is much weaker than expected. The size of this man is no doubt quite smaller than the size of this woman. Same happens in Medea with Jason, that is smaller size than Medea. Third, death as an avoidable final solution of the struggle. Both plays, even La Casa de Bernarda Alba too, and both plays end with the death, at least of one of the most relevant characters. Fourth, there's a folk conservative popular frame full of rituals and conventions that will involve the full play. Fifth, there's a poetic text, even with metrical changes, is used deliberately by the playwright. Lorca reminds of iambic trimeters when characters speak, even if he writes, mixed in prose and text, and uses a great variety of methods and rhythms in choral songs. Six, there's even a messenger coming to inform about the bridegroom's death, something absolutely unusual in contemporary theatre, but very common, as you know, in Greek tragedy. Seventh, symbols, as in Aeschylus' tragedies, to be found everywhere in Lorca's poetry and Lorca's drama. The knife, the horse, the moon, the maheri, the aloe, the fingari, the olive tree, the water, the bull, involve the full atmosphere. Images are used as often as Aeschylus do. Lorca also uses to mix song and symbols. For example, when a chorus made of girls surrounding the bride, they are making a hunk of wool in a red color as for blood, and they are singing, Madeja, ¿qué quieres hacer? Madeja, ¿qué quieres hacer? Nacer a las 4, morir a las 10, ser hilo de seda, amargo laurel. You know. Rituals, mostly threnos, sad songs, are found in Greek tragedy for women laments, from happiness and joy to sadness and desperation. Those singing and dancing chorus made of women are apparently impressive and unique in Spanish theatre. Ninth, there are long inner monologues to be heard from mouth of the main characters. They remember of some Euripidean heroines. Tenth, even if the shape of a trilogy, seems to have influenced Lorca's tragic play, because in fact there are 3 plays around the same subject shaped in the same way: Bodas de Sangre, Irma, and Bernarda. So, if anyone considers such a lot of similarities, at least 10, he very likely will conclude that they are not due to chance. The question now is, did Lorca compose these plays following the patterns of Greek dramatists, or he simply wrote them from his own mind and inspiration? As I told you, it's well known that Lorca was unable to read ancient Greek. We are not so sure about Latin. But at the beginning of the 20th century, it was possible to know the main plots of myth sagas and therefore Greek tragedies in translation, not comedies, by the way. And no doubt he considered formal structure, characters and plots of Greek tragedy. Some experts, especially Professor Rodriguez Adrados, maybe the most well-known classicist in Spain, he's 94 at the moment, insisted in the idea of influences by Aeschylus and Euripides. Adrados wrote about in 1989, Review Studios Clásicos, pages 51 to 61, and insisted now in a recently published book dedicated to Professor Alfonso Martinez, pages 640, 645, changing his previous mind in a certain way. He first, 1989, underlined certain influence by Aeschylus, mostly for male characters, and of Euripides, mostly for female characters. Now, Adrados himself doesn't seem to be so sure. After examining in detail again all the 3 plays, may include now Bernarda Alba also, I am ready to rectify my previous points of view, quite influenced by Adrados. I am not so sure that similarities we have pointed out are due to deliberate influence. In my opinion, Lorca wrote those poetic tragic dramas independently from the plays of Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides. There are no doubt some affinities, but we could underline also the following important remarks. First, there's absolute lack of divine elements. Remember, there's no Greek tragedy without gods. Deities are quite often present on stage and are permanently mentioned. Nothing at all about to be found in Lorca, except the religious conservative environment. Gods, even Christian God, has nothing to do with the development of the dramatic plots. Deities are absolutely non-existent. Second, the chorus in Lorca, certainly impressive when first seen and heard, becomes finally a decorative element and not a very essential one, as in Greek tragedy, full of plays with choral titles, Poephora, Eumenides, Trachinia, Phoenician woman, Persians, and so on and so on. Third, plots are absolutely local, not universal, as in Greek drama, even if the main subject can have a universal dimension. Fourth, many characters, as Lorca himself in a sibylline way declared, are real persons. They existed, and the plays are based in real facts, even if he tries not to give particular specific names. He says Germa, that means pardon. But characters in Greek tragedy are mythical persons. Antigona, Iocasta, Clytemnestra never existed, but Leonardo, Juan, Yermati. As a conclusion, Greek tragedy is something absolutely unique, not easy to be repeated. Many famous playwrights have been influenced and have deliberately taken different situations, formal patterns, language and so on to compose their plays all along European literature. I do not think this is Lorca's occasion. His own poetic tragic instinct led him maybe to achieve 3 plays that can be maybe seen and read as tragedies and to be even considered as a trilogy. But it doesn't necessarily mean that he was previously informed about Greek tragic plays and that he tried either to copy them, either to emulate them. Let us say that Lorca is a genius, and genius do not use to copy, not to adapt, not to repeat again. In my opinion, Lorca achieved those 3 plays by himself, in a certain way away from any influence of Greek tragedy. The final result was the production of 3 strong poetical dramas, but not of 3 real tragedies. Thank you.